Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Tales from the Cabin. I'm your host, Joey Leone. And for today's podcast, we're going to talk about, well, what is a big phenomenon in music today, which is Taylor Swift. And her effect on music and what her perception is in the history of music. If you listen to everybody, what they say these days, that she is the top-selling artist and her billion-dollar tours and everything. And you know, as a historian of music, I'm just going to put her next to some of the other great female pop artists and see how she stacks up. In preparation for this, I did listen to some of her music, which was not really my milieu, as they say, but I listened to some of it. I saw her Tiny Desk concert, NPR, and watched her, her development as a songwriter and as an artist. And, to say that I wasn't impressed would be an understatement. I mean, she's okay, but, to be considered the greatest of all time and all this other stuff, it's just, what are you talking about? So I'm not here to trash her, really. I'm just here to compare her. I almost look at it kind of like in the sports world when you're looking at a ball player from today and comparing him to a ball player from years past, and what they've done and what their accomplishments were. But in music, it's different because it's the records are there. So I'm going to talk about some of my favorite female artists, and let's just stand Taylor Swift next to some of these artists and their records. Let's talk about their records and her records. And I know it's unfair because a lot of the music that's being produced today is kind of homogeneous music, that it all has to sound the same and has the same production value, and the lyrics are not that important, and the marketing is more important, where in the old days it was just, a DJ in Cleveland could make a hit record, because it was a good record, and he got it to people's ears. So let's talk about some of these great female artists. Number one on the list that I'm going to talk about for a great record is Phoebe Snow's Poetry Man. Phoebe Snow just recorded this song, Poetry Man. She wrote the song. It's from 1974, and she really just hit it out of the park on this one. Her voice is so unique, so jazzy. She had some of the greatest New York studio musicians backing her up, and she just her vocal approach, again, so unique and so legato, with the way she would embrace and hold the notes and just sing with this like falsetto that she would go in and out of. What a beautiful record. It's a record that it's a feel good record. It's just a cool record. It's Phoebe Snow at her best. Check it out. Phoebe Snow, Poetry Man. Number two on the list is, of course, another singer who left us way too soon, Minnie Ripperton, and the song Loving You. When you hear that song, it's sweet. It's angelic. Minnie Ripperton had this like 5-octave plus range in her vocals. And unlike a lot of singers who have this, range, she didn't show it off. She made it part of the song. And what a beautiful record. It was about her little beautiful daughter. And it's one of those timeless records that when you put it on, it gives you a smile, and it makes you feel good. I don't know if there's music today that makes you smile and feel good. And speaking of smiling and feeling good on a record, it's one I've already talked about once on the Great Guitar Solos podcast, and that's Maria Muldauer's Midnight at the Oasis. One of the coolest 70s productions. It's the kind of song you just close your eyes and you can see the pictures, the oasis, the desert, the cactus, the harem, the sultan, it's a cool record. And Maria Muldauer does a heck of a job with her unique voice, very similar in approach to some of these others that I've just mentioned. It's just so unique. And of course, she never really had another big hit, but who cares? you know, it's the old story from Robert De Niro from Kings of Comedy, King of Comedy, where he says, "I'd rather be a king for a night than a schmuck for a lifetime." I'd rather have one hit record that was just a timeless hit record than a bunch of mediocre records. So that one, you got to love that, as well. Midnight at the Oasis by Maria Muldau. The next one on the list is one that I don't know any songwriter who would feel comfortable standing next to, the great Joni Mitchell. You talk about unique again. You talk about somebody with a great approach to music and to songwriting, and who was unafraid to spill her guts about her life in music, especially on the album Blue and the song Blue that I'm going to mention right now. But she also had great records like Both Sides Now. She had Chelsea Morning. She wrote the song Woodstock, which was, a great record that was covered by Crosby, Stills, Nash. Joni went on, of course, to do Coyote and the great records that she did. She did an album called Mingus that was influenced by the great Charles Mingus, who she knew, and also the record she did with the Pat Metheny group with Jaco Pastorius. If you get somebody like Joni Mitchell who will go on tour and stand on a stage with great artists like Pat Metheny and Jaco Pastorius and be totally at home and have it enhance her music, boy, she influenced so many songwriters, and years later they finally admitted how important she was, because rock and roll is such a predominantly male business. The macho rock, songwriters and musicians, would mention Joni in private, but she was the one, man. She's just unbelievable. Next on the list, of course, is a young lady. Started out with a band called Stone the Crows, and that's Linda Ronstadt, and she had another. All these ladies had beautifully unique voices. When she sang out with Stone the Crows, the Different Drummer was the song that she had as a hit. And then she went on and had a solo career. And, Linda Ronstadt could get on stage with bluegrass musicians, with Nashville country musicians, with good solid rock bands, and hold her own. And it would always be a Linda Ronstadt project. I saw her on video singing with Linda Ronstadt and Emmylou Harris. She could harmonize. And like I said, she's just such a unique artist. You're No Good was one of her big 70s songs. And she just had great, vocal approach. And you hear that specifically on Blue Bayou. Beautiful ballad that she did. The great Linda Ronstadt. Next, we're going to talk about the Queen of Soul, the great Aretha Franklin. And I could sit here for hours and talk about Aretha Franklin and what she meant to not only pop music, but also for rhythm and blues singing. She just, Aretha came from that gospel background. You hear it in her performances. But she's known as the Queen of Soul for a reason. There's nobody better. Aretha had this great ability to sit down at a piano and sing. She could get on stage with King Curtis's band and play and sing Rock Steady, which is the record that I'm going to talk about and mention. Aretha could do that with a strong rhythm section behind her. She could do Respect. The old stage thing where Otis Redding said, "That girl stole that song from me," because Otis Redding wrote Respect. But Aretha just reinvented it. And, of course, her joining with the Muscle Shoals musicians, the Swampers, was another great period of her career where she went down there playing with these white boys from the South and just made great record after great record. Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul. The next one is, I would say, the archetype of a female pop singer, and that's the great Karen Carpenter. Karen Carpenter was a musician. She was a good drummer. She loved music. She loved musicians. And she happened to have a great pop voice. She really almost never even thought of herself as a singer. And her humble approach to singing came through in her interpretations of the great songs that she sang. Karen Carpenter had a lower voice, but she could embrace. She had that milky kind of sound that it would just go right in your ear and just soothe you, close to you. We've only just begun with some of her hits with the Carpenters. And then she covered a song called Superstar, which is my personal favorite that she sang, which was originally done by Rita Coolidge, where she just owned that song too. And even this was, a song that was known by another artist. Karen Carpenter, unfortunately, died too young. but we will give her great honor in this list, Karen Carpenter. Next on the list is a lady, going back to the soul singers, who I had a big crush on when I was a young man, Gladys Knight. And her song, Midnight Train to Georgia. What a great song. What a great singer. What a great production. Gladys really stayed in her lane. She really, during that 70s era, just put out hit after hit after hit of just that, that classic R&B background, with the pips and that classic production with the horns and strings and some of the songs. Gladys Knight just had a beautifully simple approach to music, and one that really stands the test of time. The great Gladys Knight, of course. The next one on the list is a lady from my neck of the woods of Brooklyn, New York, Carole King. Carole King was a songwriter in the tradition of the old Brill Building songwriters with her partner Jerry Goffin. That Tin Pan Alley vibe of the Brill Building, where all the publishers lived, their offices were, and where they spent, days upon days writing songs. All that, Neil Diamond, Neil Sedaka, all those, that era, the 60s era, but that goes back to the days of George Gershwin and Jerome Kern and these people who were the Brill Building songwriters. Carole King was a songwriter. She wrote for a lot of different people. And then in the 70s, she put out the iconic album, Tapestry. It's Too Late, Baby. And a lot of those great songs from Tapestry. You've Got a Friend. Carole King became an artist. And that record was on everybody's turntable. More girls bought that record in the 70s than you can shake a stick at. Carole King went on to continue to be a great songwriter and to be a great artist, and somebody that every female singer-songwriter should, give great reverence to, because she really deserves it, Carole King. Next one on the list, when you talk about an iconic singer and somebody that I would probably put up there, it would be Stevie Nicks. And Stevie Nicks had a great song called Landslide. Now, Stevie Nicks, alongside with Christine McVie, you got to put her in this too, because she was also a great singer-songwriter. You Make Love and Fun and Rhiannon and all these great songs that they did with the Fleetwood Mac. So put those two together, Stevie Nicks and Christine McVie. But, man, they wrote songs and they make great records, but, Stevie Nicks' voice. And, a proof of Stevie Nicks' staying power, she still goes out and does concerts today. Yeah, she's not what she was, when she was in her early 20s, but who is? You're not seeing, Derek Jeter get out there and hit home runs in his 50s, so be fair. She's still a great artist, and she's still somebody that should be respected in that 70s era where there were pop records coming out constantly, and you had to compete with them song-wise and hook-wise, and Stevie Nicks did it in spades, no doubt about it. The next lady I'm going to talk about is one of my personal favorites, and that's Cyndi Lauper. Cyndi Lauper had a career in the 80s with her album called She's So Unusual, and she had a song on that album called Girls Just Want to Have Fun. But really, Cyndi Lauper, I just watched the special about We Are the World. She stole the show. She's on a video with Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, all these great people, and she steals the show on the We Are the World video. And her part in that song really sold that song, made it real. But she had a song that she sang called Time After Time. And there's a video of her singing it on The Tonight Show, on the Johnny Carson show, where it's just amazing. And I seen her do that one time where she was just playing like Hammer Dulcimer and singing. Just a great artist, beautiful singer, beautiful human being, Cyndi Lauper. Just a special, special person with again that signature voice. Cyndi Lauper starts singing, you know exactly who it is. Next one on the list, ladies and gentlemen, is a lady that she just transcends pop culture. She acted, but she started out as a young lady singing on the Porter Wagner show, and that's the great Dolly Parton, one of my wife Kathy's favorites. And that's, you talk about singer-songwriter, she's almost a bigger-than-life figure. You almost forget that she wrote great songs like Jolene and the Coat of Many Colors. She just was, a great singer. And, of course, you know, she's a singer-songwriter. She's an artist. She's interpretive. She can play acoustic guitar and sing. I mean, she's just a great, great, iconic American artist, Dolly Parton. And of course, she wrote the song "I Will Always Love You," which brings us to the great Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston is, to my ears, one of the most perfect singers you could ever hear. Back in the late 80s, my band Chop Shop was managed by Whitney Houston's mother's management company, and Sissy Houston, and she owned a club in New York called Sweetwater's, which was right down the block from Lincoln Center. And we were kind of the house band there for a while, and that's how I got to travel overseas because of her connections. She was just a nice lady, Sissy Houston, but her daughter Whitney Houston is one of the most great singers in the history of pop music. Her version of the Star Spangled Banner to this day is, by most accounts, the greatest live singing of the Star Spangled Banner that has ever been recorded. She sang it perfectly. There was no histrionics. There was no gymnastics. Whitney Houston was a beautiful singer, and I had the pleasure and the honor of being in Sweetwater's one night when she came in the club and just sat down and sang with a piano player and just heard her sing live in a room. I don't even remember her having a microphone. And it was just one of the most moving experiences of my life. So Whitney Houston, God rest her soul, a beautiful singer, and one that really should be admired, not just for her voice, but also for what she gave to music, which is a measuring point for all pop singers after that. So that's the end of my list for the great female pop singers, and why this lovely Taylor Swift should be a little bit more humble when you're talking about yourself as one of the greatest, female pop singers of all time. Be careful what you say about yourself and honor these great ladies. All right, that's it for me for today. Tales from the Cabin. I'm Joey Leone. I had a great time doing this. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll check out some of these artists, and I'll see you on the next one. Okay, bye.